going on, YouTube? It's cold out here. My wife decided that she wanted to have a new laundry room vanity, which, let me tell you, it's expensive. Anything having to do with kitchens, bathrooms, laundry rooms, anytime you're looking at something that can involve granite, hard surfaces, tearing out things, tile, sinks, faucets, that stuff gets expensive. Well, I don't like to spend a lot of money. It's not that I'm cheap. I just like to do things myself. I don't know how to really work with granite though, so what I told her I'd do is I'd make her a nice laundry room vanity and a sink for a fraction of what it's going to cost us to do it elsewhere. So I'm out here at my barn where I store a bunch of old wood because I like to do a lot of woodworking. And so I want to show you this junk wood I got to start with here. Now, this was free. I got this just picking it up off Craigslist. But there's a pile of wood. It's real nasty. We got some wood here, all various types of wood. It's full of nails, hardwoods, various different kinds of things, oaks, pines, cedars, you name it. I got it. Got it for free. But now is when the fun begins. Here we are at my wood shop. I do a lot of work in here because, like I said, I like to do a lot of things on my own. I've got the heat turned down to about 42 degrees in here, so it's a little chilly. I'm going to leave my coat on. I wanted to show you the sink that I got for about $80 from a supply place. It's right here. This is an undermount sink. It's a fairly large undermount sink, and that's what I'm going to be using to mount for this laundry room. It came out to about 80 bucks from this place. And the only other material that I actually used in doing this, aside from the parts off of the old one, is the epoxy that I use on the top of this wood. We started out with wood to look like this. As you saw in the shed, it's nasty, man. This stuff is bad. It has holes, nails. It looks pretty gnarly. It's pretty gross. You got to be careful for these nails. You got to knock them out or pull them out. You don't want to run those through your equipment. You take that and you run it through a planer, which looks like this. And then after that, you run it through a joiner. It looks like this. And you get a nice plumb square piece of wood. Then it comes out looking like this at the other end. And then it starts looking like a piece of wood. This is just free wood. There's those nail holes. That just gives it character. Then after you apply some epoxy, which I haven't cleaned up my mess, but that's the epoxy mess on the ground right there. You got this epoxy. That's the two-part epoxy. That's the hardener part. Then you come out with something nice looking like this. Yeah, she's going to be happy with this. It's like glass. It's fantastic. So that sink is going to mount. We're going to mount that tomorrow underneath this, and this is going to go in there. It's going to look real nice. And all this ended up costing about 20 bucks for the epoxy, and the wood was free, and 80 bucks for the sink. And we've got some spare tile for a backsplash, and maybe we'll get all that done and show you finished product. So this is the old vanity top in the laundry room and the sink. This was originally pink. It's been painted with the chalkboard black paint that's peeling off. The sink is not deep enough. My wife wants to be able to bathe the dogs in it. There's one of the dogs there. And unfortunately we are not able to do that with this, so what we're going to be doing is taking this old laminate countertop and we're going to be replacing it again with that other one that we're making there. Okay, the first thing we need to do is to remove the old countertop, and we're going to go ahead and disconnect the plumbing and get everything else torn out of here so that we can go ahead and pry this old top off along with the old sink. It'll all kind of come out all as one big piece once we get everything disconnected. Tools you may need, of course, hammer, screwdriver, and you're going to need a pair of pliers or a wrench so that you can disconnect the fittings for the supply lines for the faucet and possibly the drain line. But let's go ahead and get in there and get that torn out so we can get the new one in. Right, you've got your two supply lines that come into your shut-off, so you need to make sure you get those shut completely off, because if you don't, you're going to have water spraying out whenever you go to take these off. And the other thing we're going to do to get this prepped is to go ahead and, this can be taken off pretty much anywhere, but you're going to have some water in that trap. So for now, you just need to disconnect it at some point so that we can lift it out. Now that's disconnected, ready to come apart there. And then we'll go ahead and take these supply lines off. I will mention, it's always good to know where your master shut-off is in the house, because if for some reason you start getting into this and when you get a leak that starts springing out from the shutoff valve, there is no way to stop it other than shut off the main.
The new sink that we're going to put into this vanity is wider and deeper than the old one, so we're going to need to get rid of this drawer, and we're going to end up removing the front of the drawer and just gluing it to the front of the vanity so that it will look all clean. It just won't be a drawer anymore. So we'll go ahead and get it out here. We're going to need to keep that.
Some of these drawers are glued together really well, and others of them not so well. So let's see if we can't just pop it off. We're just hitting it with one of these chisels real quick. Alright. Had a few extra staples. It's built pretty well, but with this piece here, we put the handle back on and just screw it into the back. It'll give us that fake plate on the front. What I've done is I've taken the salvage sink here and I flipped it upside down and centered it where I wanted to have it. I went ahead and marked it, double checked it on the other side just to make sure it was centered, but marked it with this permanent marker on the back side. With doing any kind of epoxy resin stuff, when you're pouring it over the top, you end up with all these drips on the edge. You really need to sand some of those down first so you can have a good seal when you put the silicone on and mount the sink underneath. So I got to knock some of that out. It'll just take a minute. We've got everything sanded down and try to get it as leveled off as we can with those drips. So next thing we need to do is go ahead and get these brackets that hold the bottom of the sink on. We're going to put some silicone around the bottom, lay the sink down, and then using these wood screws and a washer, go ahead and screw the brackets to pinch the bottom of that sink up underneath this undermount. But I'm going to pre-drill the holes first so that we don't have splitting the wood and causing a big problem. If you don't pre-drill the holes, you run the risk of splitting your wood clear open and then the whole project's done. So we're going to go ahead and pre-drill some holes first. I'm going to do 3 on the front, 2 on the back, and 2 on each side because that's how many clips it came with. So we're going to go ahead and use them all. So let me go ahead and pre-drill those, and then we'll put the silicone on to mount this dude. We've got our silicone here. I'm going to make sure that this was clear. Didn't make the mistake of getting white or anything. I want this to be clear so it all blends together. I'm going to go ahead and put this bead of silicone sealant down on here. My brother's going to grab the sink and put it down on here so we can smash it down. You're going to end up running another bead of this along the inside edge when we're done. This just kind of gives a little extra seal underneath here to make sure that water doesn't seep underneath whenever you're using your sink. You're probably going to get a little excess that's going to ooze out around the edges, in which case you just get a paper towel or a napkin and you can wipe it off. Alright, so now we just need to lay the sink down on top of there and try to get it as centered as we can. And then just proceed to use these clamps and get it clamped down on there. We've got our sink top ready to mount, and we've got this fake plate. I pulled off that drawer in there. It was difficult to get it off of there, but we got it pried off there. It doesn't really matter how it looks behind here because it's going to fit right in there like that, but you have to have a way to screw it into the back. So I've gone ahead and just pre-drilled some holes in a piece of scrap wood that I had, and we're just going to mount that to the back and just screw it directly into this and get it lined up and put it in there with some 2-inch screws, wood screws that I've got here. We'll just put one of them in here and hold it for a second. And you're going to want to make sure that you get it level and get it where it looks like it's actually a drawer here. And then once you think you've got it where it needs to be, just go ahead and put a couple more in there and we'll be ready to go ahead and mount the sink. We got the top. We're going to go ahead and set it up there for a test fit. Make sure that everything looks good. Make sure it's all going to be level. because once you get this glued on there and we get the L brackets secured in place, you're not going to be able to move it again. So you got to make sure that it looks like it's sitting flush on there. And if you have access to a level, now's a good time because you can always shim it if you think you need to. But it's sitting level across the front and the back. Okay, what I'm going to go ahead and do now is put these angled brackets and mount them in here first. Just get them to where they're getting started. That way, when we set the top on, we can pre-drill the holes and screw it into the bottom. You just have to do one less step to have to do it later. Any steps you can try to accomplish without being cramped in a tiny hole is certainly advantageous. So we're going to put a couple of these on the back, making sure not to get them too high, because you don't want them affecting how level it makes that. We've got these angle L mount brackets ready to go, so we're going to start applying the silicone all around the outside edge so that it can seat down on there and get secured into place. And we're going to have two people lift it up and get it all lined up into place here and smash it down and make sure it fits. We did a test fit earlier just to make sure, but it's always good to have an extra set of hands. Okay, it all looks like it's sitting down there pretty good, and that'll help adhere it on there. And all we need to do now is go ahead and screw those L brackets in just to kind of make sure it stays secure in place. You probably didn't, if it's wood, you probably didn't need to put any kind of adhesive down there. The L brackets would have held it in place just fine. I just like to just do everything to be extra cautious, make sure it all gets done and secured in there. We got this top and the sink port mounted and secured, which is good. Now we've got to drill a hole, pre-drill a hole for the faucet and the sprayer. And so what I've done is this is exactly a 44-inch across countertop that I made. So you need to find 22 inches, which is right there, and then mark it, which I've done already. Mark it in the center of this where you're going to start pre-drilling your hole. And that's going to end up giving us the hole on the 22 inches to go ahead and drill about 1.5 inch hole so we can feed the cords down for this faucet. So that's what we're going to do right now, is go ahead and get that started. Not entirely sure how sharp this drill bit is, so we're going to give her a shot and go kind of slow here at the beginning. Okay, it's looking good. We've measured over a little ways, kind of eyeballed it based off where this one was. Had to leave enough room for the handle to be able to operate. And then I'm going to go ahead and drill this one out over here. Everything went really well. Everything got hooked up. We ran into a couple small things along the way, but all in all, I think my wife's going to be real happy with it. Again, we had to buy a new faucet. We were going to buy a new faucet anyway, even with the granite one. So eliminating the cost of the faucet, which was about $110 at Lowe's, the whole project only ended up costing about $110 versus the $1,000 the granite guys were going to charge. So I'm very happy with it. Yeah, everything worked out great. It's got hot and cold water. It all works out. The sprayer works fine. I think it's going to last great and work great for many years to come. So if you like it, like and subscribe below.